I was having a unfulfilling, frustrating experience in a fundamentalist Christian church where to me there seemed to be too much power and control by the pastor. And it wasn't like dictatorial or anything like that, so don't get, really crazy ideas. But to me it just wasn't healthy enough in the sense of really sharing responsibilities. And I think part of personal growth and growth within a community, small community, responsibilities really need to be shared in as much of an equal kind of way as possible, so that no one really feels like they have to control everything. So I think the more things are shared and relegated and you kind of watch things grow, it's a much healthier way of developing a church. So that was 12 years ago. I was all frustrated about that, and so I started doing the show and just kind of teaching from my own experience. And one of the things that I've always tried to do is to just be honest about wherever it is that I'm at in my particular life, at the moment, and not worry so much that I'm angry about something, so I need to protect the hearers from that anger, or I'm upset about something, so I can't let that show, or I'm really kind of riled up about a certain idea or event, and I really need to keep that to myself. So my thought was that if you're walking in the Spirit of God, then whatever it is that you're doing can be a learning opportunity for yourself and for others. And as long as you're kind of setting the stage with that honesty, then God can do the rest as far as building upon whatever seeds get planted. And what I mean by that is, an idea, you might hear an idea that I say, and that might help, develop something in you, or vice versa. And we don't really need to feel like we have to force the growth. And lately I've been using this metaphor a lot about like a wild flower garden. There's various seeds that are planted. There's no particular order to, certain flowers over here and certain here, and big divisions between the flower beds, etc. It's just a wild, beautiful growth. And I really think that's a good metaphor for church government. So you might think that sounds chaotic, but it's close to the natural order of things. So I was talking with someone recently on the show, and they came up with a good church that I might want to visit. And after many years of searching, and I have put some roots down in a couple of churches here and there, but nothing that lasted longer than 3 or 5 years, within the last 12 years. But just recently, this church I visited, I really found some real leadership that I think is just the type of thing that I'm describing. That to me is the right pieces are in place for growth. The curious thing about it, though, and I'm not saying where it is because it's not my, it's not my, I don't want to bring any negative attention to it. I just wanted to use it as something to learn from. And And, this particular pastor I just find to be really refreshing, humble, open to other people's gifts. The prayer services and Sunday services don't feel like they're manipulated concoctions from the pastor to somehow, achieve a chosen goal. And they use the service to meet this particular goal. I'm not saying it's not there, but I think it's free enough and organic enough that the Spirit can really use that kind of leadership for growth. Having said that, I am observing I don't know what to call it exactly, but I'll say it may be I think there's a good percentage of the body that just are not engaged at the level of leadership and modeling that's going on. So I think there's a certain amount of frustration there where clearly you have the seeds for growth, but maybe the land is not so moist, or it's not getting enough sun, or maybe too much sun in some cases, or not enough water. I don't know what's going on. But it's really curious to me that, all this time I've been looking for a place with the kind of leadership that is presented there. And I would think, in my own belief system, that when you have that, then you would, absolutely have the response and personal growth from, the hearers. And I'm not saying it's not happening, it's definitely happening. But I would think after a certain amount of time, several years, you would have more of a response, a unified response from the people, and I don't see it there. So I'm wondering what that's all about. So anyway, that's my little thing. So, how do I respond to all that? Well, just basically, just like it would be anything else. It doesn't matter where you are, what the conditions are, what the circumstances are. I think our primary responsibility is to be present in who we are, to be honest in who we are, and as much as possible be in communion with God, so that where changes can be made in our lives, we yield to the working of the Spirit to complete that work. So it really doesn't matter all this stuff of kind of what I'm, what I'm seeing. Some people may be being reluctant or not as responsive as you might hope them to be. So that doesn't change our individual commitment. And I would go so far as to say that the individual's choice can make all the difference in the world. And by that I mean, sometimes you hear people say things like, what was it? Gandhi said something like, be the change that you want to see in the world. And I think Michael Jackson turned that into a song or something. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, there the life of God in you is enough to spark the life of God in someone else. And as long as you're staying true to that as a priority, then the growth that you want, both personally and in a community experience, will just inevitably occur. I think that where it doesn't occur is where a particular form or way or structure or discipline of getting from point A to point B then becomes the focus, and then you're back to square one. You're back to where I left this particular church 12 years ago because too much of what was going on appeared to me to be manipulated, and maybe not necessarily consciously, but when people get plans like building committees and we want growth and we want revival and we want we want to see growth, that can be okay, but when people start adopting certain means to that end, then it's kind of like when God said, you shall not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I take that to mean him saying, you need to be dependent on me for your needs. Seek me first, and everything else will be added to you. And instead, I think people opt for their own knowledge, their own tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They have an idea of how to get, to where they want to be. So they're adopting that form and then trying to get others to adopt that same form they have, and now all of a sudden you don't have revival, you don't have growth, you have frustration, because there's a focus on the means rather than the source of the end, which is God himself.